In a little over 1 month, we will finally be able to watch The Last of Us TV show, HBO's adaptation of one of my favorite games of all time, one of the best video games ever made. And I honestly don't remember the last time I was this excited to watch a brand new TV show. In fact, it's been a long time since I've been this excited for a new piece of just media in general. That includes movies and video games. Typically, I don't feel really hyped for something until it's like a week, maybe a couple days before the release date. But I have been all giddy with excitement about this TV show for months now. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 main things that I want to see from the HBO adaptation of The Last of Us. The 3 things that I think that the show absolutely needs to do. I'm not going to mention everything that I think the show needs to do because there's lots of things that I would prefer for the show to do, but these are just 3 things. Obviously, I want the plot to be the same. Obviously, I want a lot of iconic moments to be there. That's a given. Those aren't going to be part of this list. Before I get into the video though, consider subscribing. I do TV show discussions, trailer reactions, movie discussions, and I talk about survival horror gaming a lot. And also, when The Last of Us airs on HBO, I'm going to talk about every single episode on this channel. I'm going to do episode discussions, spoiler discussions. I'm going to do just lots of videos about The Last of Us show. I am so hyped. So if you're interested in that, consider subscribing for that reason as well. Watch the show along with me. Discuss it in the comments. It'll be fun. All right, let's talk about number 1 on my list. There will be some slight spoilers in this video. I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil everything, but, you know, fair warning, I might mention something. Anyway, number 1. There are so many iconic scenes in the game, so many scenes that are so important for the plot and for character development and just because they're amazing. And like I mentioned before, I'm not going to talk about every single scene that I want to see replicated in the show. But the one scene that I think is the most important thing to replicate and to do well is the intro. The intro of the show has to be almost identical to the intro of the game. I want the show to begin from Sarah's perspective. I want there to be confusion. I want chaos to ensue. And then I want the scene or that scenario or that segment of the episode to end with the tragedy that we all know happens. The tragedy that begins our plot, but more importantly, begins Joel and his character arc and lets us know who he is as a character. The show cannot begin, in my opinion, any other way. It can't begin with news reports of infected and undead. It can't begin with military people showing up. It can't begin with whatever else. The show has to begin like the game began. It is, in my opinion, the most impactful, the most emotional, the best intro to a video game that I have ever played. I'm not saying the intro for the TV show has to be a shot-for-shot recreation of the intro of the video game, but the essence, the soul, the vibes, the theme, and the overall narrative of that intro has to stay the same, in my opinion. Number 2 on my list is that I want the enemies, specifically the zombies and the clickers and the infected, to feel like a true, genuine threat. Every single time our main characters run into one, I want there to be tension. I want there to be stakes. I want to feel like anyone infected is a huge threat. I was a huge fan of the show The Walking Dead, and I'm still a huge fan of that series and that universe overall. But one of the biggest critiques that I have with it, one of the biggest flaws that that series has, and I feel like even the most diehard Walking Dead fans would agree with this, is that after a certain point, the walkers just felt like cannon fodder. They felt like a nuisance. They felt like an annoyance to the main characters. They posed no real threat. They were not scary. But in The Last of Us show, I want the infected to feel like a threat. And same with the people. Another thing, I'm going to talk about The Walking Dead again, but after a certain point, random enemy grunts felt like they weren't people. They felt like they were stupid, dumb stormtroopers for our main characters to slaughter like they were nothing. Along with the infected, whenever we see a human that is an enemy, I want them to feel like a true, genuine threat. I want them to feel like a person with a motive that is dangerous because they have a gun or because they have a knife. Every threat in this show, I just want to feel like a genuine threat. I just don't want it to feel like put enemy here for main character to kill. And that's how it is with so many shows and movies that are about infected and like post-apocalyptic other human enemies. And I really hope that The Last of Us does not do that. Number 1 on my list. I love every character in The Last of Us. The Last of Us has, again, in my opinion, some of, if not the most memorable characters in any video game ever. And I don't just mean the main characters. I'm not just talking about Joel and Ellie. I'm talking about the side characters. Tess, Bill from Bill's Town, Marlene, Tommy, amongst a lot of others. They're amazing characters. They're so memorable. And I want to love those characters, and I want them to be just as well written, just as well acted, and just as memorable in the TV show as they were in the game, if not more. Preferably more. But with that being said, come the end of the day, I still want the show to feel like Joel and Ellie's story. It's easier to pace out all these side characters in a video game when it's 15 to 20 hours long. But with a TV show, it's gonna be only 8 to 10 episodes, I imagine. Hopefully 10, probably 10. That seems to be what HBO does. So you're gonna have a shorter amount of time to fit in all these side characters. So I hope that the episodes are lengthy, and I hope that the writers are good enough to make these side characters memorable, but to not feel like they're always there. I want a lot of time with just Joel and Ellie. Again, I want the side characters to be there. I want them to have their time to shine, but I still want it to feel like the majority of the show, most of what we're watching, is Joel and Ellie together, alone on the road, with no one but each other, learning to think of each other as family. Anyway, that's just 3 of many things that I want the HBO Last of Us show to do. What do you want the show to do? Let me know in the comments. In your opinion, what do you think is the main thing that the show has to do? What do you have to see on screen to be convinced that this is an adaptation worthy of the amazing source material? Let me know in the comments, and again, consider subscribing. I'm going to talk about The Last of Us every single week when it airs, and a lot more around that. Thank you for watching, especially if you watch this far.